If you find an item randomly which has an affix you like, let's say the +1 to Hungering Souls, but you don't really need anything else, it has low tiers, it has things that would just be way too hard to try to upgrade on the base, well, we can claim, of course, that affix. We use a Rune of Shattering, and we can break down the item and get that as a crafting affix. This item is purple because it has a tier 6 exalted affix. Now, keep in mind, if the affix is rare, you are not guaranteed with a Rune of Shattering to claim the affix. You would have to use a Rune of Removal, which I'll get into later. What if you find an item like this? This is equivalent in POE to a veiled affix. It's called an experimental affix. Can we break it down and claim the experimental affix? The answer is no. You cannot claim experimental affixes. Now let's say you have an item that looks like a good crafting base because you have this really nice tier 6 exalted affix, this explicit. Well, you have to always check, this is tip number 2, check the base. This one has really shit armor, 23 to armor. What I'm wearing currently, 179 to armor. It's a shit base, even though it has a good affix, it's just junk. You can just throw it on the ground. Let's say you're through the campaign, you're leveling, and you just want to go into the forge, and you have an item. Let's pretend we want that affix. We have one affix that we like, and then we have 3 open affixes. Now, of course, the traditional way would be to go and click on the prefix here, and then add on whatever we happen to have crafting material for. We can force on health that way. However, this is not the best way to do it. The best way is to use a Rune of Discovery because it's free. It does not eat up any forging potential. This item has 20 forging potential. We can fill these up with just rolls. We can just roll for, 3 tier 1s, not eating up any forging potential. Let's say we like that we got the critical strike chance, and we like the necrotic resistance, but we don't need the endurance threshold. If we don't want the endurance threshold, we can use a glyph of chaos. You use an endurance threshold shard, and it's going to re-roll it. It's going to upgrade into a guaranteed tier 2 because it was tier 1, and it's going to re-roll it. This is one of the most powerful and useful ways to craft. Glyph of chaos, we re-rolled it, and we hit Elirez. Let's say we like that. What we most commonly use now for glyphs, Glyph of Hope. Because now, as we upgrade, this is going to turn to tier 3 because we're upgrading it. There's a chance, like right there, to not eat up any forging potential. Once the forging potential hits 0, you can no longer craft on the item at all. And we got that all the way to tier 5. Tier 5 is the cap. You can only hit tier 6 if it's exalted, if you find it exalted. Glyph of Order, what is that? It will upgrade, as always, but it affects the crafting outcome in a way where we won't preserve forging potential, like a Glyph of Hope, and we won't re-roll it, but it'll stay within its tiers. How do you check the roll of an item? You hold down Alt and Control. If you just hold down Alt, it just shows descriptions. If you just hold down Control, it compares to what you're wearing. Alt plus Control shows you the range. And so, Elirez, we got a high roll, 20%, but it's already tier 5, so it doesn't matter. The crit, though, we did okay. We have I think it says 19, and it can only go up to 20. And so in this circumstance, it is very true. We can use a Glyph of Order if we want, and this will turn to a tier 2 crit, and it'll automatically turn 24%. It guarantees it. This becomes more useful on endgame items or when we're upgrading to tier 5. If you don't use it, it's just random roll. It'll be a random roll within that range. Now the Glyph of Despair is like a fracturing orb. It can fracture the item, however it's not guaranteed, it's only a chance. The last glyph I find relatively useless. It turns an affix into an experimental affix, and I really don't use these Glyph of Insights. I don't find them very useful. Normally you use Glyph of Hope whenever you're upgrading for guaranteed, or Glyph of Chaos. Now as far as runes, we have Rune of Refinement. This is like a Divine. This re-rolls all of the affixes, all of the explicits. Rune of Removal is like an Annul. It's a gamble which affix you'll hit, however this is a guaranteed way to claim affix shards for rare mods, unlike the Rune of Shattering. Now the Rune of Shaping. Rune of Shaping is like a Blessed Orb. It re-rolls the implicit. Now this is not a very good item that we're crafting on, it's just a demo, but we got a low roll. We got a 13%, and we can check and see, okay, that can go up much higher. Let's see what we get. We still use a Glyph of Hope to try to preserve forging potential when we shape, and indeed, we did preserve the forging potential. We got lucky, and it turned higher to 15 from 13, so it's like a Blessed Orb. Rune of Creation is very rare. I happen to have one. It's basically a Mirror of Kalandra. You're not going to use these very often, only on really, really special items. Rune of Research is interesting. It seals off an experimental affix, which is like the Veiled affix, remember? And puts it into a 5th slot, so that then you can make the rest of the item. The last rune is Rune of Ascendance. It's a fun little gamble the developers put in the game, and it's basically an ancient orb. It turns an item into a unique of that base type, and so a belt will turn into a unique belt. Random, much like the ancient orb.